I mean, it's a pretty autistic situation. And you guys might think that achievements are an autistic hobby. But that's only because you do not know about my hobbies. So we're going to talk about a situation that is kind of similar. You're going to see some parallels to retro achievements. But in this case, there is an open source app store for Android called F-Droid. And this is perhaps one of the most important third-party app stores and third-party open source projects on Android. So the idea behind this, and you guys may not know that I am a huge open source autist, so I am I care very much about, I talk about freedom and liberty. I care very much about my digital freedom and liberty, which is why I'm an Android user, and I use a lot of open source software. And so F-Droid here is the major open source app store on Android. So if you install F-Droid on your phone, every app by default that is available on F-Droid is an open source application. And what happened is, bizarrely, F-Droid decided that religious texts, as in the Bible and Quran, were now going to be marked as not safe for work. So this is where I found this out, is privacyguides.net on their forum. And by the way, if you guys are trying to look for more ways to kind of harden your security, whether it be your operating system, your browser, your phone, whatever it may be, I recommend checking out privacyguides.org here, because they have a lot of useful tutorials on how to make your browsing and stuff a bit more secure to improve your privacy. So, check that out if you're interested in that. So this is just a whole discussion on it. But yeah, so F-Droid decided that the Bible and the Quran are now not safe for work. And if you look here, now this whole thing after discussion was ultimately rolled back because this was such a dumb idea. Yeah, Fractured, so that's why you've been an Android user since the word go. Yeah, and sadly, Google is actually trying to lock down Android further and further, and we might get into that a little bit later, because it's semi-relevant. Yeah, and yes, NSF, not safe for work tags for the Bible, yes. Yeah. So, there's been this plan here on F-Droid since at least 2021 to figure out what to do with not safe for work content. No Windows Phone users. Does Windows Phone even still exist? I don't think it does. I think they just ended that years ago. So they were trying to figure out what to do with not safe for work apps. And the point of this is to protect F-Droid. Oh yeah, so here I think this is an edit saying they didn't actually want to ban not safe for work apps, the person who made this issue here. And then this person got banned from even reacting to things. And she says, not safe for work apps are important and you need to protect them, especially during, yeah, okay. This crackdown on it, queer adult content, well, we know what kind of person this is, but still. But yeah, during this crackdown by authoritarian regimes, banning them all forever was never a good idea, which I agree with. Everything should be uncensored. But so you can see there's been a lot of activity on this over the last 4 years. Yeah, they were just talking about it forever. So yeah, that's what I thought, Fractured. Microsoft killed Windows Phone in 2017. Yeah, because I think they just switched to just doing Android phones. So here is the pull request Why does this give me Weimar vibes? You know, it's really not something that should be censored, at least not in this way. And so there's a lot of discussion here on what happened, but you know, some people are very upset. But let's take a look here. So this is the original pull request. If you guys don't know what a merge request is or pull request is, it's basically just somebody makes a change to the code, but the project itself has not actually accepted the change. So what they do is they say, okay, here are my changes. Can someone accept these? And then they'll actually be merged into the actual project so that they can be added properly. And so that's what this is. This is that request. And this guy, Linsui, I looked into him. He has no real social media or history, so there's not a whole lot to really understand about him. So I don't really know what his motivation was here in creating this. But he did it. He marked multiple Bible apps as not safe for work. What F-Droid decided to do was create something called a not safe for work anti-feature. And an anti-feature is basically just a tag saying, you know, this app has something that you may not like, because F-Droid is kind of an opinionated app store because of the whole open source thing. So an anti-feature would be something like, you know, this app uses services that are not open source, right? Something like that. So they decided to make not safe for work an anti-feature. And, you know, there's a bunch of discussion here. But in short, they decided to make not safe for work an anti-feature. So it's in a similar camp as it does things that are against open source principles, which I don't agree with at all. And so as a result, you can see all these Bible apps have now been marked as not safe for work, which specifically is promote porn and violence contents. And I think the violence is probably the bigger determining factor here. Immediate question is if something like Young or Marcus Aurelius would also be not safe for work. It might be. I don't know. That's a good question. But, I mean, it all ends up being moot. So you see that, and then this guy goes, this guy's one of the, I believe he's one of the maintainers of the project. He goes, Quran apps too, I guess? And then he's like, the guy making this is like, from what I read, Quran is not suitable for children, but it's much less explicit than the Bible, so I'm not sure if it's not safe for work. I mean, like, I would think they should be on kind of the same level in terms of whether or not they're not safe for work. Yeah, and then another guy comes in and goes, if Bible apps are not safe for work, then why not Quran apps? And gives a whole bunch of examples of why it doesn't fit. And then, yeah, the guy accepts it. He goes, yes, this definitely warrants not safe for work. And then he says he'll mark Quran apps later. He never got around to it here. And then they're just, you know, spurging about religious stuff. But this guy says, right here, if this needs to be hidden or censored at all, which, I mean, it shouldn't be, the adult content tag is not the one to use. Exactly. Labeling holy books of multiple faiths in the same groups as many in said faiths deem objectionable is probably unintentional, but still likely offensive. Yeah, it's not F-Droid's job to be theologians or scholars. It's dumb that these apps are being considered for the NSFW tag, exactly. And yeah, they should be even-handed. Let's see. So this guy's just calling everyone stupid. And yes, this should never have been approved at all. And of course, the maintainers did what all people like this do, and they decided to lock the comments section. So now you can't even comment on this. I'm non-theist and these fedora tipping guys are just awful. Yeah, exactly. And so there's a lot of stuff here. Yeah, there's a lot of discussion here. This guy's very upset, this Corey guy. And he says, F-Droid is... Another thing, yes, F-Droid does get public funding in cases, both from the EU and from the American government. So F-Droid is taking EU money while turning around and slapping not safe for work tags on religious texts. That's not open or free. It's not inclusive. That is ideological censorship wrapped in moral posturing. That's fair. This guy. Let's see how long it takes the EU to defund them once they learn about their hostility towards Islam. Meanwhile, an ideology that caused hundreds of millions of deaths is not, however, marked as not safe for work. And this is a Marxism app. So a communist app. That is not marked as not safe for work. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of these comments really don't like what's going on here. And so so there were a couple of other ideas. Basically what happened was they backpedaled. Do I have... Ah, here we go. So they ended up backpedaling. They decided to just cancel this whole thing, at least temporarily. So one of the developers here goes, my vote is to move back the merge request until we have clarity on the updated not safe for work policy, or if we decide to do away with it altogether. This will calm things down a bit. Blah, blah, blah. Issue a statement. Since we don't have user accounts, take great lengths to protect user privacy, we don't have age verification features on our app store, which is true. On a new proposal, not to include the public statement, but instead opt for something more low-key, like reverting the merge request and make a comment. That's fine. I do agree with that. They should not have done this in the first place. This is terrible. And they did make a pull request to undo it. So I believe it has been done. Yeah, so they did, in fact, remove this not safe for work anti-feature entirely. But here's the thing. So this guy is what this guy is asking is on point. Until policy clarification, where is said clarification being discussed? Because the only appropriate clarification would be blah, 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 blah. Anything else won't bring back trust of the platform and won't bring back apps and so on. But this is really important because he's saying, where is this clarification being discussed? And what's happening is they're discussing this behind closed doors now. So these admins have some other way of discussion. Maybe it's IRC, maybe it's something else. I don't know where. But now the guys who run F-Droid are just discussing all this behind the scenes rather than discussing it publicly where everyone can actually comment. Hey, Jason Christian, welcome, man. How are you?
Welcome, valued customer!
Always nice to see a friendly face. Sorry, keeping the microphone. Yeah, so what's going on is that and this is where most of the discussion should have been taking place, but they pretty much locked it, and so now only these maintainers can respond. But and there were a couple of ideas as well, a couple of alternative ideas. One idea was to create a separate 18 plus repo, which I mean, it's fine. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I mean, it's fine. It's one way to separate these things, you know, just create a separate repo, basically a separate source to install these adult applications, which is fine. Another idea, which I think actually makes perfect sense, is to just have another category for things like the Bible or Quran or whatever. I don't think it should be an anti-feature, but yeah, create a new category, religious text, and that would make perfect sense. So, yeah. So that is a great idea, to have a religious text category, so that way if people don't want to see these, they don't have to. They can just avoid the category, rather than marking everything as not safe for work, which is ridiculous, right? But one of the biggest, problems with this, and this is something you'll notice, that there is a parallel to the retro achievement situation, is that the damage has been done. So there are already people who are leaving F-Droid, and one of the most notable ones is this one here. And I don't think he's coming back. So this guy, Zane, he maintains an app called WG Tunnel. Now, what this app is it is a client app for WireGuard, which is a VPN protocol. So if you want to create your own VPN, you want to roll your own VPN, and this is what I do, by the way, since I am you guys know I am a turbo autist, and I do a whole bunch of crazy tech stuff. So if I'm away from home and I want to, be able to access my home network, access my stuff, talk to my AI waifu, then I have built a WireGuard VPN. And this app is a client you can use. So you can install this on your phone to get on that VPN. So it's a very important app. It's a very major app. It is actually, in my opinion, better than the official WireGuard app. So there's an official app, and this is a secondary app. Basically a third-party app. This is better than the original app. And this guy has said, I'm the developer of WG Channel. I'm requesting the immediate removal of my app from the F-Droid repository. I have serious ethical concerns with F-Droid that make the continued association untenable. Really quick. Jerry, 88% of what I say is religious, be that pagan, ancient witchcraft, but still, just blanket NSFW. I'm not safe for kids, for usually kids are the ones caroling. Jeez. Don't oversell it, Jerry. Jason, I'm going to look back on stream on what this is because I don't get it because I came in late. No worries, Jason. We've been through a couple of different topics. This is just... so as I said earlier, F-Droid is an open source app store for Android. It's a third-party app store, and every app on there is supposed to be open source. They marked Bible apps as not safe for work, and we're about to do the same to Quran apps. And then they had to roll that back because it was so poorly received. And so we're just going over some of the details on what happened. So what Zane here says, a couple of ethical concerns are, your acceptance of $400,000 in funding for the Open Technology Fund, which is largely U.S. taxpayer money obtained through coercion-based take, while portraying F-Droid as a volunteer and donation-driven project. And then recent campaign against religious texts, particularly labeling the Bible as pornographic and violent, marking it not safe for work. This is not only outrageous, but clearly politically motivated. Understandable, so he wants them to remove it. And this is one of the maintainers. And he goes, not sure what U.S. taxpayer money obtained through coercion actually means. Do you think the Biden administration stole this money from U.S. citizens? Yes, they did. That is what all government does. The funding was granted back in 2024 or so. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. There's no campaign. And this guy... I like the way he says, according to the libertarian point of view, taxation is theft. It's off topic, but yeah. And I like the way this guy says it. In my religion, taking someone's money without consent is forbidden, except as stated in the Quran and Zakat in a very limited and fixed form. And you know what? I think that is one thing that the Muslims are actually very based on. There's actually a story of where, I forget if it was Afghanistan. I think it was Afghanistan. Where there were American soldiers and they were talking to a bunch of Muslim goat farmers or whatever they are. They were trying to explain the concept of taxes, and every time they tried to explain what taxes were, the natives would just be like, "That's just theft." And I heard that story and I'm like, oh, that is so based. In God we trust. Mind your business. Torah, Bible, Quran, and Semitic. Yeah, those are the Abrahamic, Semitic religions, I guess. So yeah, they're just discussing the whole taxpayer funding thing. But we'll keep here. And yeah, so this is the original guy. This is the guy who wants his app removed, and he says, in response to what taxpayer money obtained through coercion means, this guy, absolutely based. I wholeheartedly agree with him here. It's simple. If you don't pay your taxes, you go to jail. It doesn't matter who the president is. If it was Trump, my response would be the same. Again, based. The government does not give money to open source projects out of the goodness of its heart. Yeah, of course, they give money for control and influence. Makes sense. You'll see the OTF has strong ties to the U.S. national intelligence apparatus. Interesting. So, just like U.S. aid. And yeah, he just says, please proceed with removing my app. I've said all that needed to be said. Yeah, and this guy's trying to get him to reconsider, but, I mean, the damage has been done. The trust has been lost. That is really the problem, is that once you do things like this, once you go down this route, you will lose the trust of people. You will lose the trust of very important contributors. Yeah, this guy's just being very hostile and argumentative. Let's see. Yeah, so he's just pointing out that they marked Bible apps as not safe for work. Not agreeing with the policy. Okay, not wanting the app removed. It's your right. But then this guy says, using a conspiracy theory to justify it all. There's no conspiracy theory here. Everything this guy said is completely correct. Everything that Zane of WG Tunnel said is completely correct. Oh yeah, by the way, this is something very entertaining that I just thought was funny. So this guy says this, he's being all sarcastic, and he's a maintainer. He says, sad to see fans of sacred books full of compassion, understanding, all the good stuff, you know. That all that can't show empathy, can't seek to understand others' point of view, can only assume bad faith of everyone else they disagree with. So yeah, this guy's doing the whole fedora tipping stereotype pretty hard. So this guy creates an issue, violation of code of conduct by this maintainer. This statement is disrespectful, inflammatory, and mocking in nature in violation of points 1 and 2 of code of conduct. Which is actually kind of hilarious to me, because you're basically saying this guy who is in control of the project, he's violating the code of conduct. But it's like the guy controls the code of conduct. So it's like, what's the point? What is the point of reporting him? Because it's like, he's going to investigate himself and find that he did nothing wrong. And of course, they want it locked, so only the internal sense should... They want it locked in the sense only the internal team should speak right now, of course, just like the other issue. Jeez. Okay. Yeah, so I reject this way of looking at it, yet at the same time I understand it can be read as such. So, yeah, it's... Yeah, so this is just kind of funny, because there's no real point to doing this. Because, I mean, the guy's he runs the project, so there's no point in trying to report him to himself. Let's see. Oh, and by the way, I do feel I need to point out... Oh, Jerry says the difference between conspiracy theory and the truth? A fortnight. Yep. And it's getting shorter and shorter, Jerry. Now, one thing I do feel the need to point out is WG Tunnel here. So it has been removed from F-Droid. Unfortunately, this guy used the MIT license. He used a cuck license, chat. So if you're not familiar with the whole software licensing thing, basically there are different kinds of open source software licenses. And they give people the ability to do various things with the software. So some licenses, like this MIT license, for example, they say you can basically just do whatever you want with the software. You can fork it, you can make your own copy of it, whatever. And you don't even have to, disclose the original source of the license. You don't have to disclose the source code if you're using it or anything like that. And we call these cuck licenses. Because what it especially means is that a big company can take your project and they can use it in their own work and not even credit you or give you any kind of, not pay you, not credit you, not do anything. Even though you put out all this hard work free of charge for people. So never use a cuck license, chat. The best license for open source software is the AGPL v3. Because what that one says is not only if you use my software, if you use my open source software, if you fork my software, whatever it is, you have to give out the source code. You have to, you have to give out the source code. And you cannot use it behind even a network. So companies like Google are actually terrified of this license. They have policies saying that if anything uses this license, if any software, open source projects use the AGPL v3, they cannot use your code anywhere in their company. Which is just so cool. It's so awesome. So, for any software people out there, always use the AGPL v3 if you're making an open source project. But other than that, yeah, so he's updated his project now, so it no longer is available on F-Droid itself. You have to set up his repo for F-Droid or use something else to install it. All rights reserved is the only license. Well, I'm a big open source guy, so I like, I like sharing my work. If it's not copyrighted, for sure, you can just fork it and alter 20% of it and have it be all rights reserved. Yeah, exactly. And that is same akin to making satire. Yeah, Jerry, and that is exactly what I was explaining. So that is what the AGPL v3 does. That allows you that the AGPL v3 makes it so that someone cannot just fork it and alter it and have it be all rights reserved. So any fork of your AGPL v3 project has to be AGPL v3. And so you're going further into this here, based on, I think this is the main reason that they backpedaled, is this guy standing up for his beliefs and saying, take my stuff off F-Droid. You can just rip the shit out of anything and call it comedy. Comedy being the license, but I get your point. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to make comedy out of this, but I get your point. But these two messages here, I think, really sum up what happened. You may have noticed people have turned hostile, leaving F-Droid. When something happens, everyone should stick together. Otherwise, closed source will continue to rule the world. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. We're working in the background for the not safe for work issue, which I don't like that they're working in the background. They should be working openly. But this heat has already done harm, which is really not easy to gain back. I don't know why he says there's no trust undone here, because the trust has been undone. And that's the problem. The trust has been broken, and it is very difficult to gain that trust back. Developers can have platforms, not every end user can become unfair than F-Droid. But in short, this comment is a good example of what's happened, is that it's like with retro achievements, again, how a lot of people got upset after F-Droid started censoring everything. They left, and there's a good chance that a lot of them will not come back because retro achievements broke their trust. And it's the same thing with F-Droid, because F-Droid has broken the trust of a lot of people. It's broken the trust of a lot of developers, and they will not come back. And I really don't think that Zane, the maintainer of that WG Tunnel app, will ever come back. I just don't think he will. And then this, from the author of the original Not Safe for Work content plan. I actually think this is a very good take, and I agree with her. Yeah, so I think this person is this person's probably transgender, but that's okay. That's okay. I don't mind. As long as they're not crazy, I don't mind them. So what this person says is, I do hope we can listen to all voices, not just the last ones, and blah, 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 blah. and also ensure other legal adult content stays available. Safe access to privacy respecting free open source software apps as alternatives. Tracking proprietary apps is very important. And right here, I'd like to state that this whole proposal 4 years ago was just supposed to be a quick workaround for a perceived legal risk of the lack of any "are you an adult" question. Given it has waited 4 years without any issues popping up, perhaps it would be much better to just cancel the proposal altogether so we can all enjoy the material we want, be it manga readers with lewd sources or Ezekiel 2320. And I agree, that is a base take. That is a base take. I agree. Do not censor anything. Nothing should be censored. I am wholeheartedly, vehemently against censorship. And that is the right approach. And it's like he says, we don't want an app store that tells us what we can and can't install. Exactly. Yeah, common reply is removing an app from F-Droid doesn't stop you from installing it. It misses out on the main selling point of F-Droid being its build system. So, yeah. So yeah, there we go. And I actually do like this idea here. A content rating system would be a little bit better. So, yeah, if you could differentiate between levels of it, that would probably work a little better too. Choices. Fair use is dumb to invoke. It can never be a commercial, where satire and journalism can be, so you can make fun or just comment on top. And it's fully legal. The modality must change, though. You can't make a song out of a song, an article out of a song, but you can make a song out of an article, or an article out of a song. Yeah. It's dumb after the fact anyway. Yeah, but they're trying to, basically, they're trying to do damage control, and I think one of the things that's not helping is that they are trying to do it all behind the scenes when it should really be done out in the open. I mean, if something is done in secret, that's not exactly great for the trust of people. So they're already making another mistake there. But then I did want to just dig really quickly into... before we dig into the reasoning. There is something here, just a mild tangent here. So... yeah, definitely. Yep. So they want this person, this is one of the maintainers, wants some way to detect profanity in source code. So in the source code of the apps that they host, they want to be able to detect profanity, which is just completely retarded, by the way. It's a completely pointless, useless feature that nobody needs. It is completely unimportant. And all this came because there happened to be a racial slur in one of the keyboard apps. I don't even know what was the slur? Okay. Let's see what the slur was that triggered all this. That's it? Oh, okay, someone said wetbacks. And that just upset someone enough to make an issue where now they want to detect profanity in source code, which is completely ridiculous. Okay, so one of the... So probably something very important to go into is the whole impetus behind all of this. Like, why did this happen in the first place? And F-Droid has a blog post here where they talk about some stuff that's going on. And this is, and it shouldn't be surprising to anybody, this came as a result of the UK's Online Safety Act and things like that, and our upcoming censorship bills here in America as well, of course. So basically they're trying to get around that. F-Droid is trying to avoid being censored by that Ofcom group that was established by the UK. They're trying to avoid getting hit by the UK's Online Safety Act and other censorship bills. So that, and see right here, the F-Droid service is likely out of scope for most of the Act's requirements. However, we're still taking several precautionary steps. Just documenting legal position, completing a tool. And this might be the big one here, clarifying and updating our code of conduct and inclusion policy. So that's why this is happening in the first place, is these censorship bills that are supposedly supposed to protect the children, but what did they do? They got the Bible marked not safe for work. So if you want someone to thank for that, you can thank the people who are trying to censor everything. And on a side note, this is especially important because Google is trying to kill the idea of sideloading on your device. So they even have a blog post about this here. So what is going on is that Google has decided that in order for you to be able to install any app you want outside of the Google App Store, whoever makes the app has to register with Google and basically tell Google, this is my app, and give away all the information on their app to Google. So, in other words, you are not going to be able to install random apps from F-Droid or whatever that you want. So Google is claiming sideloading isn't going away. But yeah, as they said, this statement is untrue. The developer verification decree effectively ends the ability for individuals to choose their software. So yeah, exactly. So you can no longer develop an app, share it with friends, family, community, without getting Google's approval. In other words, Google is trying to make sure that every single app that gets installed on an Android device going forward has to be approved by Google in some way or shape or form, even if the app is not on the Google Play Store. And this is a problem in a lot of ways. Because they're saying it's for malware or whatever, but it's not going to help. So, yeah, this is Google's way of locking down Android further to be more and more like iOS, when the whole reason to use Android in the first place is that it's so fundamentally different from iOS because it's open source. And Google's been doing this for years, by the way. They, as they say here, they closed off the development of the Android open source project. So, yeah, they closed off the development of... Yeah, Google makes Android development private, will continue open source releases. So the development will no longer be open source. They're just going to do their development and then release it as open source later on. They've also been systematically cutting things out of Android. So back in the day... So a lot of the apps that your phone depends on, things like, calendar, keyboard, and so on, Google has been systematically taking out, not just leaving them to die, and then pushing their proprietary apps instead. And then here, how Chrome killed ad blockers with their new Manifest v3 thing. So that's why you can no longer install an ad blocker in Chrome. Google killed it off. So, yeah, that's just something that's really important to me, is software freedom. The freedom to run whatever software you want on your own devices. The freedom to be in control of your own device. And all of these things together do not paint a very optimistic picture for the future of open source software. And I can only hope that these things, somehow Google is... turned away from doing this, and that F-Droid stops being retarded. But that is the F-Droid marking Bible as not safe for work story, and some of the other stuff going along with that.